Dr. Gutstein explains dynamic intelligence.
In a nutshell, is learning how to manage a future, your future state, where you know that you can't totally predict what's going to happen. You know there are going to be challenges, and you know that you're going to have to make some important decisions in the situations that occur. So it's being able to effectively deal with a lot of those real-world situations that are really the pivot point around which our success in life depends, especially in modern society. So we're talking about being able to prepare yourself, plan for a lot of alternative possibilities in the future. We're talking about being able to, in your mind, learn how to determine what is most likely to happen down the road. We're talking about being able to look at your environment as you're engaging. Look at yourself, look at others, look around your environment, look for critical information so that you can continue to revise the map of where you're heading, what you're likely to encounter, to continue to be prepared, continue to revise, adapt, be flexible. All those are the aspects of dynamic intelligence that are really, really critical. Another critical aspect of dynamic intelligence is this ability to learn from experience, to be able to develop knowledge about what you're likely to encounter, about yourself, about those around you, about the situations that occur and that you have to cope with, and to become a self-learning organism, self-evolving, if you will, self-learning organism. So especially with the changes, the continued expectations in our society, we're going to be continuing to go through dramatic upheavals, immense volatility, lots of uncertainty. Dynamic intelligence, which is the study of uncertainty, learning to effectively cope with uncertainty and challenge, is an essential. It's the essential ability, we believe, to be able to succeed in what we and our children are only going to be facing more and more of in the years to come.
So I hope that was some food for thought for you. And you can also think about when you use dynamic intelligence. How often during the day do you rely on recognizing your feelings to help you make judgments? How much do you rely on recollecting prior experiences to help prepare for the future? How important is it to be able to take a step back and see the bigger picture? And consider the degree of improvisation that goes into a routine conversation. It's a very dynamic process. So next, we're going to be exploring some of the research that comprises dynamic intelligence and its absence in those with autism. The following consists of findings in the research as seen in childhood, but that also persist into adolescence and adulthood without improvement. This is a list of some of the best research, but there is more support than what I'm sharing here with you. To save time, while I'm providing you with this reference, I'm also just going to state what the deficit is for those commonly found in individuals with autism, because this would take a long time, and I know and appreciate, I know you're busy, and I appreciate you being here. So what research has done is that it started to form a pattern for us where we can see that individuals with autism generally have an intact static intelligence, but universally impaired dynamic intelligence. Persons with autism function in their most dysfunctional manner when their environment is highly complex and unpredictable. And so some of the research that's out there about individuals with autism also support the components that are necessary in dynamic intelligence. So rather than focusing on providing children with a lot of content acquisition, like what they would learn in flashcards, it's more important that we truly understand what the research is saying about their areas of challenge and then put that to a clinical practice. And that's what we've done with RDI. So quickly, They have a lack of desire to engage with novel experiences. There's a non-existence or reduction in ability to engage in pretend play. Emotional awareness and awareness about their own mental states. Self-dialogue, which can include, I'd like to specify the dialogical inner voice that is kind of like where we would think about two different sides of the coin in order to widen perspective and consider multiple options when we don't have the right answers. And so the research has shown that that is lacking in individuals with autism, and that is going to dramatically affect their ability to solve problems when they don't have the right answers. Intuiting is also very critical for the ability to solve problems when faced with more complex non-black or white decisions. Flexibility, so the ability to shift sets and to think flexibly. Improvisation involves rapidly recognizing and making sense of and adapting to others' feelings, intentions, expectations while operating in dynamic environments. And again, conversations are a really good example of this. Re-experiencing, that's the ability to use our prior experiences in order to learn from them, grow from them, and function more effectively in the future. It's depersonalized, so the personal recollections appear to lack the emotional content, and that emotion is often what spurs us to act. That's what helps trigger the level of importance in terms of how detrimental the problem or the challenge or the situation is, and how we need to think about how we will respond to it. Maybe you can all relate to, let's say if there's a problem, but it's also emotionally charged, we may need to sleep on it. We may know that we need to take a little bit of a break or a breather before we address the problem. Otherwise, it may not go well. Self-reflecting is being able to develop our own personal knowledge around our experiences so that we can learn and grow from them. Creativity and generativity are specific to individuals with autism who have difficulty imagining unreal or novel things as opposed to concrete, concrete reality-based experiences. Imagining and creating, so global processing, being able to step back and see the bigger picture. In fact, Frith's original notion of a weak central coherence suggests that increased local processing is in autism resulted from reduced global processing, and that it's a critical impairment in individuals with autism and affects their ability to think flexibly and solve problems. And the contrary is that they engage more in unusually restricted behavior, inflexibility, insistence on sameness, and fear of change. This is an interesting story, but Oliver Sacks, in his book, An Anthropologist on Mars, recounted his astonishment at realizing that Temple Grandin, a well-known individual with autism, had no concept that she could evaluate the impact of her actions on social partners. Similarly, she could not infer her partner's subjective state, nor did she seem curious to at any time inquire about their subjective state. Grandin told Sacks about the countless internal videotapes that she had made about social situations and then correlated them with the setting, goals, and requirements to develop predictive scenarios of which she was likely to encounter and would be her most effective responses. Using her limited experience processing ability, Grandin had constructed and stored numerous social scenarios so that she could anticipate and prepare for different types of likely social situations. These scenarios were limited to more superficial social behaviors, but they did not represent a form of personalized experience-based knowledge. However, she had no way of applying these videotapes as a starting point for more dynamic emergent social engagements. And if you can imagine, this must be exhausting to try to tap into her, all the different files that she has in her brain about how to prepare or respond to specific social circumstances when she doesn't have all the information available to her. Similarly, I've spoken with a man who was 32 years old, and he had an IQ of 145, and he shared a very comparable story of his own experiences. So despite that very high IQ, he really had no way, had not learned how to be able to use his prior experiences and anticipate future potential scenarios that could be unpredictable in order to manage his world and to create stored personal knowledge. And I can just only imagine how challenging that must be. And so dynamic intelligence emphasizes the importance of developing a growth-seeking mindset as well, which is very important in terms of being able to continually want to explore and to live in the complex world that we do today and to grow. And so dynamic intelligence is critical to one's quality of life, to employability, to friendship, to conversation, and to mental health. Children's dynamic growth takes place within the mindful guide relationship. So dynamic intelligence cannot develop in environments geared to functioning in a world where information is never too complicated, where we can work on one goal at a time, where the future is always the same as the past, where we never experience mistakes, frustrations, and setbacks, and where we are always provided with abundant resources. On the other hand, allowing children unguided exposure to high levels of complexity, unpredictability, and stress is only a recipe for avoidance, withdrawal, and poor self-esteem. So if you can imagine the amount of overwhelm that a child who's not well equipped to manage in, say, a very busy dynamic school environment, often parents experience an awful lot of fallout and overwhelm themselves. And so stress and reactive parenting becomes part of the norm. It's a cascade effect that produces very negative consequences. So thanks for listening. And in the next presentation, I'm going to delve into how we develop a growth-seeking mindset and the mind-guiding relationship. Thanks again. Thanks for being here, and see you soon.